Hey everyone, and welcome to gorgeous Istanbul. In this video today, I want to give you my top 10 tips and things that I've experienced here in Istanbul if you're coming to Turkey or specifically to Istanbul for your very first time, things that I wish that I was aware of before I got here and that I have learned over the course of the past 2 weeks of being here. I'm Adrian Fields and I'm an expat entrepreneur that typically calls Bali home, but finally, after 2.5 years of the pandemic and being on my little paradisic island, I am out and about in the world again. So here in Turkey, it's my very first time, and I came here really not knowing anything about the culture other than what I learned in the history books in elementary school. So I want to save you some of the kind of pains or some of the sort of disappointments and things that I experienced here, but also share some of the things that you should be really excited about if you're planning a trip to Turkey. The very first thing that you want to know is how to get around Turkey, especially as soon as you arrive at the airport. I highly, highly recommend using Uber for every transport experience you have. Yes, there are local cabs, but they will often rip you off. I just come from SAW Airport, which is the airport on the Asian side of the city, coming back from Antalya, which was a domestic flight, and I had a driver that totally ripped me off by about $20. Actually, the price that he quoted me when we got going was $550. I argued it with him. He went down to $500. And then by the time I arrived, it was $450. But I knew that from Uber, it should have only been about 300 Turkish lira. When you take Uber, you know what price you're getting, and the taxi driver is going to almost always stick to that. The taxi drivers here are supposed to use a meter, which you can see in their rear view mirror. It displays the price, but a lot of times they'll say, no, I don't want to use the taxi meter, especially if you don't speak Turkish. They know you're a foreigner, so they're going to take advantage of you. The other thing to note is that while I recommend you using Uber, it is not 100% great all the time. There are occasions where the driver will say, where are you going? And if they don't like your destination because there's too much traffic, they will cancel on you, and it can take a really long time to find a driver who will take you, because actually the way that Uber works here is that they just connect you to a local taxi driver, so you're still just ordering a local taxi. However, you're more protected in an Uber because you can rate them badly, obviously, and they'll be kicked off the app if they take advantage of people too many times. The other thing to note about taxi drivers in general here is that they are all mean and grumpy. They really don't speak any English, so don't expect to have like a really friendly, great, nice conversation with them. The second thing to note is that Istanbul is actually a very walkable city if you come in the right season. I came in March and it's freezing, so I don't recommend coming in the wintertime, but that's a different subject. Bring comfortable shoes. I made the mistake on my first day here of wearing leather boots with a 2-inch stacked heel, and by the end of the day, my feet were bleeding because Istanbul is very hilly. So you go up and you go down. The downs can be very kind of slopey and precipitous, and the ups can be walking up literally hundreds of stairs. So bring sneakers, and you can actually walk all the way from the old town Istanbul to the trendier areas like Beyoğlu, Taksim, Galata. So if the weather is good and if you have comfortable shoes, really take advantage of the fact that Istanbul is a great city to walk around in, because you just never know what you're going to see when you go down an alleyway or you cross a path. There's just so much history and so much beauty to see on foot. The third point, as I just alluded to, is the weather. So I've come here in March and it is unseasonably cold. Even just coming back from Antalya, which is in the south of Turkey, it was cold there too, and the driver was saying it's not typically this cold at this point in March. And in Istanbul, it's been snowing. I've luckily come on a day that it's not snowing. It's my last day here, but it is still very cold. I think the high today is somewhere around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's very cold. I did not come prepared because I've been living in the tropics for the last 4 years. So on my first day here, I actually had to go shopping at Zara and buy sweaters and buy a hat because I was just frozen to the bone. And I would say come in a different season. Don't come in the winter. Come in the spring, come in the summer, come in the fall, but do not come in the winter. It's way too cold to really enjoy walking around or even enjoy being on a terrace or whatever the case is. Another really important point to note, and something that I underestimated coming here to Turkey, is the language barrier. Now, I actually speak 4 or 5 languages, so I'm a linguist. I love languages. I love learning them, and I feel like I have a good ear for them. However, to me, Turkish sounds like a combination of the language that the Sims speak
Skiba Yamoob. Sorbin Nurks.
and Dothraki from Game of Thrones, if you don't get that reference.
Boyda olacak.
Tamam ama hiç kıpırdama, tamam mı? Hiç kıpırdama.
Bana bir göster keseceğim
Şurada
yeri.
kesiyorum bak.
It is totally unintelligible, and English is not very widely spoken amongst the general population. So, I mean, talking to a taxi driver, they're not going to speak English. If you're staying in a 5-star resort, obviously English is fluent. So it depends on where you go and what experience you have. I've had experiences of going to cute little cafes and English was proficient, and I've gone to other places where really like the English is very, very minimal to almost nothing. So Google Translate definitely comes in handy in that case. The only 3 words I think I've learned in 2 weeks here are merhaba for hello, kazak for sweater because I had to buy a few of them, and hamami for hammam because that's a must-do experience that I will talk about a little bit later. Okay, we cannot talk about Turkey without talking about food. I have not had a single bad meal here in 2 weeks. That is not an exaggeration. I think that people are maybe even like sleeping on Turkey as a destination for gastronomy. Like, it is amazing. Even as someone who doesn't eat beef or lamb, which feature heavily in Turkish cuisine, I've had like nothing but good meals. The flavors and the spices, it's just so good. One thing to note is that the food does tend to be quite carb heavy. However, if you're walking around, it's not a big deal. But if it's winter time, then get yourself to a gym because all of those pita breads and flatbread spinach pizzas and everything else that's so delicious is definitely going to put some weight on you. How to pay for things in Turkey. So when I first arrived here, I took out the equivalent of around 230 US dollars from an ATM and was charged an exorbitant fee by the ATM to do so, around 15 US dollars to take out that much. And 2 weeks later, I still have Turkish lira left over because almost everything is via credit card, and they even have the contactless credit card payments here. So if you have the latest card, that's really easy to do, and I recommend, of course, always paying in the local currency if your card does not charge any international transaction fees. The only things that you need to use cash for are if you're giving a tip in your hotel to the bellman or whatever, or if you get really stuck, you can't get an Uber, and you need to take a taxi. I've noticed some of them do have terminals in their cars, but other times they don't, and they will want cash from you. So I would say just take out like a little bit of cash for depending on how long you're going to stay here. But in terms of paying for anything, credit cards go. One thing though, actually, I should add to that is that sometimes they'll give you a discount if you pay in cash. This I noticed in the Grand Bazaar, for example. When I bought a gold necklace there, the man said, I'll give you a 5% discount if you pay in cash, but I just paid 5% extra to pay by card because I didn't want to go and deal with that. But anything else, credit cards, way to go. The next thing I want to talk about is an experience that you absolutely cannot miss when you come to Istanbul, and that is going to the Turkish Baths, aka the hammam, or hamami as they say in Turkish. Now, if you want, you can watch my day 1 in Istanbul vlog where I talk in depth about this, but to just keep it short, it is an otherworldly experience that involves lying on a hot marble slab until a man, if you're a man, or a woman, if you're a woman, the attendant massages you and exfoliates you and smothers you in soap suds. It's just like such a sensual, incredible experience. And the one that I went to, I'm going to put the name here below, was in a building that was almost 500 years old. And go and splurge. It costs maybe 50 euros, but it is such an incredible experience. You cannot miss it. Of course, it's really important to talk about safety in any city. So I have felt safe here walking around, but I've also noticed a lot of extreme poverty. I've noticed people wheeling around carts full of garbage. I'm not someone who goes out late at night and would walk far distances, but there are also times just like I've felt a little bit unsafe when I was in a taxi that wasn't an Uber. But that kind of is a little bit my pessimism. Like, I think that everybody is always trying to rip me off and kill me. But I think that Istanbul seems to be, in general, a safe place, especially if you are staying in the more touristic areas like Beyoğlu or Taksim or Galata or the Old City. But just be smart, obviously. Whenever I had my camera with me or my phone, like I would keep it very close to my body, or keep it in a pocket because I did not want to be flashing valuables. I just think that's kind of common sense when you're traveling. The next point that I want to talk about is for all of my allergy sufferers out there, specifically my brethren who are very allergic to cats. Now, I am super allergic to cats, probably more so than any other allergy that I have. If I'm in a room with cats, I can't breathe. My skin crawls, I get hives, it's terrible. And cats are everywhere in Istanbul. Like, instead of stray dogs, they have stray cats. And the cats are given carte blanche to roam around wherever they want. That includes inside restaurants. There was one day that I went for breakfast somewhere. I walked in and I saw there were like 4 or 5 cats roaming around, and I said, like, is there somewhere where I can eat inside without the cats? And the owner just said, sorry, we have cats, and if you want, you can sit outside. So in order to eat and breathe at the same time, I had to freeze my ass off sitting on the terrace. It's just something to be aware of. Bring your Allegra or bring your Zyrtec, your Claritin, your allergy medications if you're allergic to cats. If you love cats, then Istanbul and Turkey are great for you because you will see lots of cute little kittens all over the place. And finally, I just want to talk about my experience with the Turkish culture and Turkish people in a general sense. I don't want to try to blanket everything because stereotypes never work, but this is just my observation after being here for 2 weeks in the wintertime. So maybe that has something to do with it. And also the language barrier. I found Turkish people to be a bit aloof. They're not the warmest or friendliest. I'm coming from Bali and also before that living in Thailand, which they literally call the land of smiles. You smile at someone, they'll smile twice as big back at you. That's not the case here. I always try to approach people with a smile and a happy demeanor, and usually I just get like a not the most welcoming response. And again, the language barrier could play a part in that. But on the other hand, if you're staying in a 5-star hotel, there does tend to be great hospitality, but I think that has more to do with like being in a 5-star hotel than anything. But you know, the average Turkish person, I just think that they're not thrilled to interact with a foreigner. It's not like they're excited that you're here in their country necessarily. So just be aware of that, that it's not like, you know, they're going to roll out the red carpet for you. That's my experience. And what else can I say? Turkey is an incredible place. It has such cultural and historical significance, despite any downsides that I may have mentioned, like unscrupulous taxi drivers or people that may not be that friendly to you. There's also the complete opposite to that. There are people who can be so friendly, and the food is amazing, and just the sights are amazing. So it's an incredible place to come. I wholeheartedly recommend visiting Turkey. I'm so glad that I did. It's been an incredible 2 weeks here. Honestly, I feel like 1 week in Istanbul is enough. I don't really necessarily feel like this is a place, though, that I would want to come back to again and again. But on the other hand, I'm really happy to check this off my travel list. It's a very special place. And that's it for this video. Thank you guys if you've watched all the way to the end. I'm Adrian Fields, and until the next time, I'll see you guys. Take care, and don't forget to subscribe.